All right, I call the meeting to order.
Okay, what time is it? 7:30, 9:30.
We have a quorum. Approval of the minutes.
There was one correction on the minutes as distributed. On page 3 at the top, if don't have to print it out, but it's in the paragraph. Well, it's in the book here, so it's saying. The word election in the first line should have been education. It was not the election board districts, but the education board districts. So with that, I guess I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes with that correction.
So,
Second.
second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, motion. Minutes are passed. Changes to the agenda.
I had sent an email around about several things. I want to make sure they're at least covered under one of the topics already on there, or we can add it. Judge recruitment plans, judge salaries, plans for a public notice regarding this is a large number of new voter registration cards. We talked about having a plan for that. Let's see. And I don't remember last year, 2 years ago, how this supply verification process went for the board members.
The what?
Supply verification.
Well, I don't think we did it last time.
I don't know what you're talking
I
about.
don't remember doing it.
One of the things on the calendar is that we, the board, approve the supplies that go out to the various precincts.
Two precincts.
To the precincts. I don't understand what that, I'd like to have a discussion of what that is.
Is that form in here?
Yes, I included that.
Yeah, there's a form, there is a form in here for that. And,
Good morning.
and the last one was the post.
You get caught in traffic too?
Oh, yes. I think well, I was right on the minute leaving anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I left 15 minutes early and they worked on Matthewstown Road. I didn't think I'd ever get here.
And then the process for post-election audit, did we do that 2 years ago? I don't remember doing that either. That's on the calendar.
Right.
Well, is that somewhat new?
No,
Uh,
no. It's just a matter, well, I don't know if you want to discuss it now or how do you, because we're talking about the agenda, so I just want to stay within the guidelines. Whenever you want to discuss it, we can, but I just wanted to stay within whatever you
Right.
want me to do.
Well, which was suggested we put it as a separate item on your
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
business.
that's what
Go down your list again. I got judge recruitment. That's as far as I got.
Judge salaries?
That's early voting.
Well, did we agree on all
I think
of
we
them?
agreed on the others, but it's early voting, I believe.
Maybe the early
That's it.
voting, well, there was some issues that
Okay,
weren't.
all right, the other was posted, so I think
Okay,
we,
plan for, public notice regarding the large number of voter notification cards. Process for supply verification. Are we going too fast, Joe?
I'll get it.
Okay. And the process for post-election audit.
I had one other thing, was count of voters by the hour. Let's review what we've previously done.
I didn't hear what you said.
Count of voters by the hour, which we had previously done at the polling places. Anybody else have anything else? If not, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Okay, the agenda is approved as amended. Are there any public comments? Election Director's Report.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you want me to go ahead and discuss some of these things in this, that's fine. Some of it I did have in my information, so I can go ahead and discuss some of that. But just to kind of go through what I have already, just a reminder that the office is closed this Friday, March 30th, because of the observance of Good Friday. The county is closed, so the state also allows us to close at the same time, so just to give you a heads up on that. The May meeting, I was going to propose that we move it to a morning meeting only because at that point the county clerk's office will do the swearing in for the election. And it might be easier. She is available that day, but I have not talked to her about the nighttime. It was that she is available during the day, so that was just something that I wanted to bring to your attention. And also if we can, at that point, do the supply verification at the warehouse.
So you're talking about the morning of May,
Yes, it's usually a nighttime meeting.
and what's the date?
Because that's got dated.
Sorry. Well, wait a minute. It is May.
Hey, we got calendars.
We got calendars. It would be May 16th.
I have one.
Oh, you have?
Yes.
Okay.
So May 16, you're proposing that the meeting be in the morning rather than at night?
Correct.
And that the swearing in be sometime?
At a morning meeting, but it's not, I mean, it's up to you. I can also get back to her at that point to see if she can come in at the night time. I don't know how it's been done in the past, but just
It's
wanted
been done two different ways. One way, years ago, she would come here, but that stopped. And then in the past, it's been either we arbitrarily go over there whenever it's convenient for us and she swears us in individually,
Okay.
or we make an agreement amongst ourselves to go over and be sworn in all at once as a convenience.
Okay,
So
so,
all those things have happened.
okay. So that was just a proposal, so it's entirely up to you. She is available that day. That's all I just had talked to her about that possibility. So I guess that's up to you.
I had that under new business.
Okay,
That's all right.
okay.
So I didn't hear which just,
The May 16th meeting is an evening meeting.
Okay, so
In order
it's gonna be
to
in the morning.
be sworn in, well, we've got to discuss it in
Oh,
new
okay,
business, but
Right. It's just a
decide that.
proposal.
Oh,
She's
okay.
just
I'm all for it.
After talking with SBE in reference to the amount of voters, we were able to, the most that I could drill down for MD voters to find out how many voters were affected by the change were about 1,200. And keep in mind that of that 1,200, we were also in the process of doing an ERIC report, which is where people move in and out, and anytime anything is done by polling place, it will reflect in that number. It also reflects in day-to-day whoever may have come into the county at that time. So the way that I was able to go down was I can go from the dates, which was 10/1 to 12 or 1/31, 18, and then just by polling place, and then that's what it gave me was about 1,200 voters. So that's for everything, not necessarily only involving just the ones who were, from what I found.
Can you tell us how you arrived at that? Because Waddell told me hers was changed, and the way I read it, hers was correct before. because her side of Penny Lane is in 1.5, and now she's been put in 1.2.
I went with what Mark's has on his, from what he derived from his information. That's where we went. That's the
But it
whole
doesn't
thing.
follow our map.
I'd have to get Mark back in here to find out why that's. It's not following that map.
Right.
I'd have to get Mark. I
What
don't
it
know if
shows
he's
is
available.
one side of the street, the even side of the street is 1.5, and the odd side of the street is 1.2, because
Uh-huh.
that, like Dover Road, is the dividing line,
Okay,
that street.
and are you even or odd?
I don't know.
She's even.
I've
Okay,
And
so
I've
you're
got
on
two-
even.
got these two places.
Correct. For the local election, you would vote at the firehouse, and for this, it's the high school. Okay, so you're saying the evens are in 1.5?
1.5, according to the map, the way I read it, because the line is right down the street, the way it appears.
But see, usually, I mean, I was voting at the community center.
Mhm.
Then I got, this new card, and I didn't understand it exactly.
I went by what Mark had given me, by going street by street, and that's how I got the information. I mean, I can see if he is available, but
Yeah, I think we need to verify,
do you want me to go down and see if he is available right now?
They can, yeah.
Okay, in just a second, I'll be right back.
Is the attorney gonna discuss this?
He'll be late, he'll be here at 10:30.
But is he going to discuss this? Is this
Uh,
one of the topics that he's coming to discuss?
Well, he's coming to discuss primarily the one between Trapp and Easton, but also the, what notification.
He is coming to discuss the
Right, those
voter
two things,
notification
yeah,
cards and
yeah.
the redoing of the
Right.
notifications, okay.
Is that his,
So- Sorry, would it not be more appropriate to have the person dealing with the map come at the time that the attorney's here so that we can
Probably would,
get this
yeah,
cleared
yeah.
up?
Well, she's just saying if he's
Together?
available at all.
His door's closed, so I don't know what his availability is right now.
Susan was pointing out it might be more appropriate to have him come when Phil's here to discuss the other issue.
Okay, and again, I don't know if he's even in the office. I just know that he's the door's closed when I went down there. And
Okay, does the secretary have him now?
she said that she does not know whether
She does
he's,
not know.
she said usually if he's not in the office, it just means the room's dark. But with the door closed, he could be on the phone.
Is there any
Okay.
way you could send him an email or a text message asking if he would be available at 10:30?
See if I can do that, hold on.
You want to let Tom come this time?
What's that?
Your replacement for Tom?
Yeah, it was the original shooter, and then I think we had Scott in here once or
Right,
twice, and then
When? did
Tom
you-
filled in for us while we're shifting people around.
it's on the cable TV. It's shown from time to time on the cable TV.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Alrighty.
Chris, where do you live? Are you in Bailey's Neck?
Old Country Club.
Old Country Club. Oh, okay, that's this side of Bailey's Neck.
Yeah.
Because that area was part of the issue that the change of precinct back in 1892. We changed the district.
Yeah. I think I voted the fire hall.
Yeah, I think it was moved from Peach Blossom being the line to Trips Creek being the line
Oh, is that right?
in 1892.
Were you there then?
And
Push.
Peach Blossom's on this side of you, isn't it?
The Peach Blossoms on this side.
Right, yeah. Because, see, that area was voting a trap.
Oh, is that
They were
right?
in trap district.
Hmm.
Until, this was 1892, it was changed.
So everything on the other side of Trip Creek votes trap,
No, Trips Creek,
or Oxford maybe?
on the other side there votes Oxford, but over on Old Trap Road,
Oh, yeah,
they supposedly voted trap.
gotcha.
But I think the change was misunderstood. We'll discuss that later, but
Mhm.
I was just curious, if you were in the area that was changed back in 1892, which was
Yeah.
before you had to worry about it.
Well, it's interesting that you picked up on Mrs. Thomas's change and that discrepancy, because then it begs the question, was she an outlier or just or is it representative of some others? You don't know unless you have to now go back and do some random sampling or some sort of mechanism to figure out.
Several of the precinct lines are down a road,
Mhm.
and so one side of the road's in one precinct, the other side of the road's on the other precinct. And that sometimes makes things
Mhm.
confusing.
Yeah. Right. Well,
The other area we have a little bit of concern is some roads, one end of it's on one precinct, one end of it's another precinct. Matthewstown Road, for example, it goes out about a mile, it's in the second precinct, and then beyond that, it's in the fifth precinct. Or even farther out, it's in the fourth district.
No.
oh,
It
really?
goes to Cordova, so
Yeah.
that's, Matthewstown Road has three different possibilities.
The town keeps going further out, doesn't it?
Well,
Tonight,
yeah,
no, I can't
but
make
that
any
hasn't changed.
explanation
The
at all.
1-5
If you were to come to me, I
precinct that
said,
votes the
I
community
could not make
center
any explanation to
Um,
you at all.
That's right, that's what I'm saying.
was
I can't
created, I
explain.
think, in 1880,
Huh.
when
I
part of
mean, I'm
our
being honest.
You know what I'm saying?
legislative district, part of the legislative district from Queen Anne's and up came into Talbot County, and it
No, I don't
included
think it has.
everything out
I
in
think
the
it needs to-
Eastern District outside the town of Easton at that time. Of course, the town limits were a lot different at that time.
Yeah.
Include Tennant's Mill Precinct, include Cordova Precinct. They were all in the legislative district with the upper shore.
Gotcha.
And thank goodness it was only 10 years that way, and then it went back to being all together. And I think Caroline's split up now. They're in part in 36 with the upper, and part in 37th with us.
Huh.
Joe, these are ready for your signature.
Oh, okay.
When do you wear the shirt?
Okay.
Whenever you want.
He is not available, but I've asked him to come at 10:30 when Phil gets here. And I'm gonna text him when Phil is here. He's in the middle of a
Because you
call.
could wear them election day, something like that.
You want that, the
California.
signatures.
So,
I didn't hear what you just said, I'm sorry.
Okay, can we postpone that then? And,
I didn't hear, what was your
He,
report?
I'm gonna text him at 10:30 when
Oh.
Phil gets here. He's in the middle of a conference call
Oh.
with California, so he's not available at this minute. But he is also gonna look up the information on what he's got.
Anything else on your report?
We're gonna talk about the trap information that,
Right.
when Phil gets here. We talked with Department of Homeland Security, they met with us, and Brian LeCates from the county's EMS was also in attendance. And hopefully we will receive a report in a few months. He did mention in his findings, just generically, that, there's a vulnerability, but he will be more specific at that time. I did speak with Easton Firehouse, and they are willing to move the 2 pieces of equipment so that we have a little bit more room at the early voting site. So I thought that was very nice of them. Telewire is here right now to replace the firewall. They were supposed to come last Wednesday, and unfortunately we got the snowstorm, so they weren't able to come. So they are here today to get that taken care of. And Okay, so to go back to the questions that were asked about the audit information, I did provide you with the audit that the state, the comprehensive audit guidelines that the state has each year for us to follow. You will notice that it says 16, but this is the one that we have right now. As far as the audit itself, the only thing that I had requested, I believe, in that information was that you need to pick for 100% verification and for auditing the, there's a place where we need to audit the post-audit election information, that the board would then pick certain precincts that need to be audited, and that's just a matter of you picking them out of a hat. I think there's a percentage of it, and I think for us it would be 2, just at random, so that they can be checked after the election, you know, once we get the information back in. And I'm trying to find where it is in the page. I meant to highlight it, but I wasn't in the office. But it is, it's a percentage of. And then the supply verification, that has always, it's been a part of SBE's policy. That's just a matter of once we get the supplies in for all 11 polling places and early voting, at that point, it's just a matter of you've got the information in your packet. It's just a matter of the board members coming over and verifying that the information that is on that sheet are in the packets, are in the supplies. So that's what that supply verification means.
So I think that's B on, these aren't, it looks like it says voting unit full book allocation. Would that be the supply verification?
Well, I just found it.
Okay.
On page 6 of this audit guidelines, there is, on the voting system verification, it says after 8 p.m. on election day, the local board determines the number of precincts to be verified. The local board randomly selects the greater of 3 precincts with at least 300 registered voters or 5% of all precincts. So it would be 3 precincts that you would just pick out of a hat. And then there would be a post-election verification done by our staff at that point.
So we pick it after 8 p.m. on election day. Is there a time requirement when we have to pick it? Could we pick it at the canvas?
It just says after 8 p.m. I can check with Nikki to see if that is a possibility.
I mean, because we canvas on 2 days later.
I'm not sure the deadlines because I haven't gotten all the deadlines as far as when they need this information back. The post-election verification may be the next day that it needs to be put into. So I will check with Nikki.
When it says local boards, does that mean the members of the board or the entity that is the Talbot County Election Board? What does that mean?
Well, I'm only going by what we had in the past, what I had been familiar with, and usually that is the board, you as board members, but it could be, and again, I can get clarification.
Yeah, I think you'll get clarification on that, because
Okay.
other places, it says the director, it says
Mhm.
staff, but when it says local boards, it's a
Okay.
little vague.
Okay.
But then, if it's us, then it requires us to be someplace at 8 o'clock on election day.
Mhm.
Well, it says after, so that's what I was
But
questioning.
that's the other side of it, right? Is it like 2 days after, or is
Right,
it 20
yeah.
minutes later?
Correct.
Well, hopefully she can.
I don't know.
On this book that you sent, is it possible to put page numbers on there? Is that a big deal?
They're at the top.
They're at the top.
Each one has the top, has their page numbers.
Real fine, real small.
No, I was talking about this.
Oh, this.
Oh,
I could, sure.
I mean, it's not a big deal. If it's a big deal,
Well, I will do my best, I'll put it that way. Okay, I will ask her about that. It's either Nikki or Aaron, I will reach out to one of them. Oh, and there was a question too on the election calendar about the June meeting. That was just an error on my part. There's no reason the June meeting is changed on that calendar that I sent to you. So that would be the same time frame. I think it's like right before early voting is our meeting that day. Yeah, it's the 13th. So that would still be the 13th at 9:30. That was my error. And then there was something about the 17th of October. Oh, I made the mistake. I didn't count down 3, so it is the 17th of October is the regular meeting date for. So that was just, again, the error on October and June meetings when I was formulating the calendar. So they stay the same. I wouldn't attempt to even do anything as far as changing dates of meetings without prior approval by the board.
on the calendar, if I can find it,
It's not in this
It's not in here,
packet,
it's
it
a
was in the
separate
first
thing.
packet, or the past packet.
I got it somewhere, just a matter of finding it.
Does it, on that date we just talked about, it says there's 2 events that day. There's the board date, meeting date, which you've now corrected. But under that, it also talks about the supply verification. Is that, do we,
In May.
well, I was just talking about the one in October.
Oh, is that also, I hadn't gone that far. So October is the deadline, could be the deadline. That's probably in September. I'll have to look, I don't have it with me right now, but I can look. So the
Matt.
supply verification has to be done within a certain time frame before the election, before early voting.
15 days, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was October 10th, you,
And that may have been why
Will supplies be packed that soon? 15 days before?
everything, and again, keep in mind, there may be things like if for some reason ballots are not delivered to us,
Might not be available.
you
Yeah.
may not be able to say that they are ballots in the supplies, but SBE knows that. They know that obviously we don't have the ballots, so you can only mark off what
Okay.
we have.
Did you find out yet how many ballot styles we have?
4,
4 is all?
that's it.
And how they count by precinct?
Now, the only one that has, that's going to have more than 2 is going to be the Eastern Firehouse.
Right.
And obviously, early voting will have all 4.
But what's the difference between the 4? I mean, two a party, I'm sure.
Yes, 2 by party, and then for the consolidated, that's what's driven the 2 ballots, the 4 ballots total.
Strictly because it's consolidated precincts?
Correct.
Okay, so it's different one for each precinct?
Correct,
Okay.
for that particular polling place.
The L&A in there is for a week in May. Previously, there was a time when the central committees were invited in and the board members were there one day when there was something for L&A done.
With the new system, there is, I will notify the central committees and they will be able to view the information. It's not any longer where the board can come in at any time.
Right.
It's almost recommended to just come in just to to
just to
view
see
it.
what's going on.
But the central committee is at it's called public demo. And it used to be that there was an actual public demo, but now it's just a matter of seeing the information after it's been completed. And we have it available to them on that day.
So you do the LNA and then the results are on display?
Yes.
Nothing else under election director's report. The board attorney is supposed to be here at 10:30, so we'll go to old business. Anything under invoices? Or anything under budget for current year?
Oh, and just, I'm sorry, I'm going backwards. I did hand this out to you, but I just wanted to make it for record that we received information today from Stewart that, and this came from Farmer Son, that the Maryland General Assembly is planning on putting it on the ballot for same-day registration on election day.
At least we get to vote on it. Public gets to vote on it.
So I just wanted to make that so that public information, even though they can, people read the,
Is there any record of how much it's expected to cost?
I don't think that's even been,
If you recall, the discussion in Ocean City was that there would not be any cost meaningful to this because there was the implementation legislation, which will be in the next session of the legislature where the cost will be calculated.
is that what they said at the
Yes.
SDR
Yeah,
breakdown?
this is the enabling legislation. In other words, it changes the Constitution to allow this to happen, but it doesn't happen until there's the
details.
an act adopted by the legislature and approved by the governor that specifies how it will be done. So that's where the cost will come in. So there was a discussion back and forth. It's really someone should take an estimate of what it'll cost now, but that's not the way it's done.
Yeah, I think, well, yeah, I don't really, all I know is that they are planning on, the last I had heard, with this, the implementation is planned for 2020 election. So I don't know if that's changed because of this being done this way. I don't know that.
Okay.
I just received this today and thought that this would be something that you would find important.
Okay, is there anything under the budget either way?
Yeah, I have a question or two here. Page 9 of the budget printout.
Did I give you those counties' budget that they have? I gotta give that to you as well. I always get it later than what I send out to you all, so don't let me forget to give that to you. Okay, so page,
Under office supplies, there's two credits from Office Depot.
right, it was just
Would you return
things that
stuff?
were returned.
Oh,
Right.
I see.
I'll go ahead and give you the, like I said, they always are a little bit later than when we actually, I send out the packets, so I like to give you their information. And they do run behind what I have. I will tell you that the invoices are starting to come in, I mean, as far as things being bought because of the election, so next meeting there will be additional.
Have you seen anything, or got anything from the council on when the public hearing is?
I have not heard anything from
I
them.
think it's, I think it's usually in May. All right, anything of interest in the county bulletins, anything?
I did I just give you that last one?
Right, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
That was the most recent one that was sent out.
Yes.
okay.
And if you notice, one of the things, on the ballot on demand printers, we have the one in our office, and they have just started this new service agreement. So I contacted them, and they're coming today to look at it, because we have a door that doesn't close, and we're gonna see if we can't get the thing working. Because it's in the, the state has put this contract in, I figured we need to, I think it's been jumbled around quite a bit from place to place, and it's an extremely heavy piece of equipment. And so we're hoping that maybe they can look at it and get it back working. Okay, so. And as Joe pointed out, the greeter judge exemption, I sent that to Nikki on Friday.
Today is the deadline for changing the precinct boundaries.
Right. That's why I wanted to meet about this today
Right.
and didn't realize the other information.
Have you talked to the state much about that?
About what?
The line district line between Easton and Trapp?
No, as a matter of fact, I went up there to speak with Donna when we had our election meeting and our director's meeting, and she was not in the office.
Okay.
I did kind of talk to Mary in a very short time frame with at Mayo, but to not a lot of extent. But she basically, because Phil and I had already met, there really wasn't one way or another of anything.
Okay, is there anything about the Mayo conference to report?
Well, I thought it was very informative. I particularly liked the talk by the woman about the different age groups and the characteristics that they display and how all of us kind of need to understand that we're coming from different places. Very informative and something that I would suggest be shared in other ways, because I think it helps us to understand some of the concerns that the public has in the voting process.
There was definitely different thoughts among different groups, different age groups.
I thought it was a great conference. I thought the speakers were very good. The last speaker, unfortunately, I think he had a bit of a fail. So he was the magician type that was the motivator. But other than that, I think we had some really good breakout sessions. So I don't know what ones you all attended, but the ones that I attended, I thought they were good. And it was a good combination of having SBE there as a kind of a guide, but having the local boards as being the ones giving the information from each local board. So that was a good conference.
I went to a conference, or one of the ones that I went to, aside from that talk, was on Montgomery County's extensive plan to educate the voters on the voting process. And they have a staff and a budget, and make a concerted effort to get voters to vote, basically, and it's very successful. So I think they're a model to even us smaller counties. Their turnout is quite good, and the numbers that the person who runs the program reported were very impressive.
I think they have two language ballots too, don't they?
Well, they have so many languages in
More than two?
Montgomery County, I think it's more than two, actually. But they do have an outreach to different language speakers. That's part of what their program is.
It's later under new business, but judge recruitment, I went to that session. And one of the things they suggested was putting flyers in the libraries and grocery stores, post offices, to notify people that we're looking, that sometimes they see the signs there. And also they suggested, colleges. It was just some of the things come out of that one.
And I agree with you that I went to the one Susan talked about too, and that was very informative. Putting that kind of stuff into practice is more difficult than learning about it, I found.
I'm sure. And it is, it requires time and
Well, this
money.
whole business about, dealing with people by tweeting, I don't do tweeting, so I have a hard time
Right.
kind of implementing that kind of strategy. But I did learn a lot, I think, at the one on the recruitment, and when you talk about the judges later, I think we need to explore how much of that we can use.
And a lot of that, I will tell you, some of that was mentioned are things that I implemented some of that at some point. I don't know which ones you're referring to, but there are some of them that I did implement into our process as well. But I will say that with the judges' recruitment, it does take one staff member to constantly work on judge recruitment. It's no longer a close to an election type position.
Mhm.
It is a full-time position to keep them in the loop.
Mhm.
This is the Harford County brochure.
What was the one on the state trooper did? I missed that. I got to right at the end of it.
That was just active shooter.
It-
Yeah, it's one of those of how to prepare for somebody walking through a office or whatever as an active shooter. I don't know how you prepare for any of that.
No.
I think, trying to let the judges know that that could happen is, bottom line is I look at it as me personally, I would look at if somebody walked through a door with a AR-15 start flaring gunfire, you have no time to react, and it's a big challenge to try to say something to the judges, but at the same time, not make them fearful. It's, unfortunately, it is our world that we live in, but do we want to scare them? He was very good. He was very good. But it just, we kind of talked about it afterwards, and people don't quite understand unless they work in elections about how a polling place works. And it's just a little more of a challenge of trying to, a lot of older judges, how are they going to defend themselves? So it was it was a very good talk, but kind of hard to implement. It goes back to what Rich said, it's harder to implement.
Mhm.
Well, he's in a group, they train all the time
Correct.
for that thing, so I mean.
Yeah, and he's on the SWAT team, he
He
knows.
can't,
Yeah, he's always got a gun on his side. I don't know. I don't really think I want to see election judges armed to the teeth.
No,
I just don't think that's a good thing.
Okay, anything under customer satisfaction surveys that you've got?
Not today? Mm-mm.
Okay, we'll go to new business. I guess the first item is approval of judges. Have you got any modified list? Or
I
list
did hear
that you sent
from,
us?
there was a lady who just responded, Ms. Milholland. So she is, I sent her the information to sign up as a voting judge.
So she's got her paperwork back?
Mhm.
Okay. Any others?
And I don't remember, I've not heard anything from Miss, there was a Miss Smith, but I haven't heard anything from her.
And she told me, her husband told me she sent it in.
She sent in the original, but we sent back the information. I'll check. It could be in the mail today, so I will get back with her. And, oh, Mr. what's Jonathan's name? I got him assigned. Mr. Shaw. I heard from him, and he is assigned.
Have you assigned either him or Mrs. Milholland?
I just got her information yesterday, and I
Okay.
wasn't in the office at all yesterday.
Okay, so have you sent information out to Wayne Layfield?
No, I have not.
Wow, that's
And
impressive.
I'd like to talk to you about that.
No, okay.
Okay.
Oh,
How
that's
about Diane Clark?
Yes, I did. I sent her an email.
Gary Skirta?
That was sent out back in the beginning of March, and we haven't received anything back.
How about Marilyn Keenan?
Was that on the same list?
It was a different time.
Kate, how do you spell that name?
Keenan, Keenan, I believe.
I haven't received anything back.
But you have sent it.
As far as I know, yes.
Pam Martison,
Yes, she's assigned.
she has responded. Okay.
Yep, I've got her. I haven't assigned her to a precinct. Again,
Right.
that's being done. I've got her assigned to training, and then I'm getting them all. I'm working on getting them all assigned.
The biggest thing I see is in several precincts, there's discrepancies in far as being equal numbers of each party. At the Eastern Firehouse, I think there's 8 Democrats and only 2 Republicans, 1 unaffiliated at that point. At the high school, there's 7 Democrats and 5 Republicans. At the community center, there's 5 Democrats and 3 Republicans, 1 unaffiliated. At St. Michael's, there's 3 Democrats and 4 Republicans, but I almost believe we need more people there.
And it is a work in progress.
Right.
I've got people on standby that I can put in, so it's a matter of, I'm just trying to get numbers, it's just been,
They know how to clear the minute office, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Can you do it from a computer?
the thought, and if, with attending that judges training information that was at Mayo, you heard that it was pretty much the entire state that has the challenge of getting equal parties.
Right. So how do you, at this point, you had said that you would want more judges, I think you wanted 20 more when we last.
We have 103 now
Mm-hmm.
that are signed up. There are a couple that I have not been able to reach out to find out why they haven't returned their paperwork, so I would say about 100 that we have. And this is where I am going to try to get people into polling places if there's a need. I was trying to keep it as party equal as possible, but I'm just trying to get so that we've got enough coverage for election day. And we are also working on early voting at the same time.
So do you feel you have enough on the roster of judges, or do you think it would be helpful to put out some kind of a public notice or make some effort to get more judges to contact you?
I think we're, having not been a part of how Talbot County works, in the smaller polling places, I think we are fine. In the larger polling places, I think some of them are fine, so I am going to, once again, sit down and really look at what I've got as far as allocation. I believe that we have, I will, and I'm going to say flat out, I never believe we have enough judges. I always like to have additional judges, even if they're on a pending list, so that we can draw from them if something happens. Because invariably somebody's going to get sick, somebody's going to have an emergency. So I don't ever feel like we have enough judges. I am always excited to hear someone say, I want to be an election judge. And I had 2 that came in yesterday that wanted to do something into their record, and they kind of laughed about the fact about being an election judge, and I tried to recruit them desperately. So it's one of those, but you know, it's just a matter of whether they are willing to take that 15, 16-hour day and work it. But I am always, I don't believe we ever have enough election judges. Like I said, even if they're in a pending status, at least we have them to draw from.
So you have you don't have a buffer group?
No. I mean, right now, I think we can run a successful election. If everybody shows up, I think we can run a successful election.
Right.
Will it be balanced as far as party? Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, the law calls for it being balanced.
Well, I understand that part of it, but it's also the challenge of you can't make people serve
Yeah, but
as election judges.
We can't, I don't think we can disobey the law.
Well, there's an effort put forth, so if you make the effort, you have to deal with what you have. We have to hold an election.
Right.
So you have to deal with what you have and put forth the best effort, and then if it isn't a balance, you go with what you have and you try to keep it as balanced as you can with what you have. I don't think there's anything against the law about that.
And what I train the judges, because of the fact that, you know, it is the 2 major parties, that when they walk in on election day, they are no longer that party. They have no opinion at all. So to me, they are all one. They are really not at that point of the 2 major parties. They are election judges. And if we find out that they are in any way disobeying what the law says as far as trying to sell their own party, then at that point you can't ask them to come back. I mean, that's well within you just can't do that. I agree, I would love nothing more than to have it absolutely even, but I'm trying to put them in as best I can to have it as even as I can. But both parties are represented in every polling place.
Do we have time is there time to put forth more effort to, you know, recruit people to be election judges? And is there time to publicly put out, you know, something to encourage people to be election judges? For example, putting something up in the library or wherever. I heard somebody mention different places that you could have a notice asking people to, you know.
It can always, I mean, I put them in thousands of voter notification cards when they went out. Every voter notification card that went out for about a 6-month period had election judge brochure in it. We got maybe 15 back. So, you know, it's just, election judge training starts on Wednesday. And then we can, that's why I say recruitment is very important, but it is so important.
Needs to be done a year
that it
ahead.
needs to be done by an individual who is constantly working on nothing but election judge recruitment, constant contact, doing brochures, doing newsletters, keeping the judges in line, or in tune of what's happening in the election office. It's a bigger job than what it used to be.
Well, I was looking through the list of things that were discussed at Ocean City. And I think some of this still can be done before the election, but that's, you know, it seems to me that at Chesapeake College, we contact there, they may have people that would like to work. Of course, you know, there's several $100 each time they work. And the schools, the high school.
The
they
high
can
schools
work.
are in session in the general,
Yeah.
so
Well,
that's
a difficult one.
that kind of
yeah.
takes it away for what
Yeah.
we can use them for.
State agencies were another one, you know, there's gotta be 8 or 9 agencies with a lot of employees that there's a benefit to them. They get the day off with pay, and they get this extra pay.
The schools also, I know at that session that I mentioned, they actually have community service. If a student from the schools is an election judge, they get credit as a community service, and so they're excused from school.
I wondered if,
And so,
if they
you know,
could
there
use
is-
that as a part of their civics or history or class or whatever it is related.
Well, that's what they do.
Right.
They give them credit, and then they learn, of course, because they're on the job, so to speak. So I think it's worthwhile to contact the specific people. I mean, one of the advantages that we have as a small community is we know the people, the individuals who might be supportive of us, our effort to get, for instance, kids from school to act as election judges, even if it's just one. Because if we get one, that one person would tell some other people, and it might start some kind of a trend. So I would encourage you to contact Mr. Schaefer at the high school. He's been very supportive. And one of the departments, there's a, it's not called home economics, I don't know what it's called anymore, but the head of that department actually had people who were interested in being election judges, and so that particular teacher could be contacted to encourage his or her students to consider training for election judge.
I think James Redmond is in charge of the service program, and he can tell you whether it will qualify.
It really would work, you know.
And I know that it's
allowed.
changing. It's
Yeah.
changing maybe this year or after this year. It's changing soon as to what will qualify. But James Redmond, I know is heading
And he's
that.
at the.
He's at the
He's
board,
actually in the
yeah.
office.
So he would definitely be
Right.
the person to contact. And even if it hasn't changed yet, if we just started that process.
And it may still count, it may count for those service hours, but certainly I think in your sophomore year, do you have to be 18 to be a judge?
16.
16, so I don't know how it would work out, but I think they take their civics course, you know, or their government course, their sophomore year. And I'm sure that they would be happy to coordinate that somehow, some project, service learning project with those teachers in that class if they're 16. A lot of the kids will turn 16 their sophomore year, so.
And right now, that may be something I'm gonna have to try for the fall, only because I've got to contact Montgomery County. I've never dealt with students. I don't know what they do as far as how they treat, you know, how they have them in as election judges. Are they full-fledged? Are they greeters? what do they
Right,
utilize them
yeah, I
as?
understand.
According to the law, it says that they can be
I understand, I understand,
full-fledged
I
election
understand.
judges.
They're not registered to vote, they can't.
They just have to have their parents' permission.
No, judges are supposed to be registered voters, aren't they?
Well, that's what it, yes, that's what it says, yes. That's why I need to get a hold of Gilberto, because I have never dealt with the schools.
You can register, I guess, at 16.
You can
vote.
register, yes.
So,
This
It'd
is
have
the
to be-
person who runs the,
Yeah,
program
Gilberto, yeah.
in Montgomery County.
Yeah.
He's very knowledgeable.
So, like I said, and I will tell you, right now, I am in about 15 different directions, and I'm just trying right now to make sure that we have enough election judges for election day, so I don't know how much I can get to this right now, but I will do my best to try to reach out to this gentleman after I talk to Gilberto. There are, we have had conversations with those that have come in or called in and said that they are state board or state employees. I have asked them to reach out to their people within their offices to see if others are interested as well.
you say you have a brochure? So you
Yeah, I
give them-
had
give
given
them-
it to you.
Give them, those people brochures to take to their office.
Mhm,
No.
right.
Well, can we post a few of those somewhere? You know, library, post offices?
I don't believe the post office allows us to. There was something that we tried earlier and they wouldn't. Library is a good possibility.
Well, how about grocery stores? You know, most of them have bulletin boards, you can post things.
There is the one that sits in our office that could be posted there. It doesn't give any more information other than, do you want to be an election judge type thing, and the number to call.
What's on the website? Could you print that off? Is that any better, or is that the same as that?
I'd have to look at the website. People just need to know that it is a 15-hour day and that it is, you know, there are stipulations. So let me, again, I'll try to do what I can. Because of everything else that's going on, I will do what I can to try to get this information out.
Okay, how about if we skip and go back to the board attorney's report? We can get into this thing about the,
Okay. Well, Jerry and I met when we were in Ocean City to try to see if we can resolve this issue with what we have going on. Pass one down there.
Thank you.
This is just the, I don't know if- So this is the controlling act concerning this disputed election district in the Trap Easton area. And it is derived from the Talbot County Code. That's the code section. I can pull that up here if you'd rather. Can you see the screen okay? So there's that's the code, and you'll see at the end that what we all know, that the county's divided into 5 election districts, and it is set forth in these various acts of the legislature, and the last act that anybody who looked could find is this of 1892, which is that first stapled page. Frank Brown was governor, chapter 572, and you can see it's an act to change the boundary line between Trap election district and Easton. And that is the last reference as well on the Talbot County Code, about halfway through. You'll see it right here, chapter. So that's what we're looking at. We don't have any other reference to any other changes since 1892, which is hard to believe, but certainly the current map suggests that there has been a change. If you look up here, you will see that this is the area of concern, and whether or not, well, right here, that's not letting me do that, but this little dip down, that's the area of concern. We're trying to figure out whether that should be up here with District 1 or down here with District 3. And I'll show you why we think it should be with District 1. But at some point, it changed from going straight across, and I'll show you that in just a moment, but we can't find where or why it changed. I suspect that it changed. Okay, so that's the section that I was just referencing. This is the area of concern. And this is the old, the map that we could find. And I'll outline it for us a little bit better here in a second, but right here, it dips down and goes back up. And what we think, the reason we think that it does that is if you read the chapter 72, it references the residence of James P. Hamilton. This map existed in 1892. We doubt that it was referenced when this problem arose, and they come off of Tripp Creek here, and they go straight down to Hamilton. And that would make sense. It's a logical, I think it's an error, but it's a logical error. They come down to Hamilton, the Hamilton Post Office, and then it goes back up to the Easton District and over to the Choptank River. Okay, so now what I'm going to show you, and if you want to read, on the second page, I just bulleted the points of where, of the legal description. So so if we have, let me just get probably green would be good. Okay, so here is Tripp Creek. So here's the spot number 1. If you see, can everybody see that? Is that okay? So that's the beginning at the mouth of Tripp Creek and running north. So we're here and we go north. And then you see that it follows the northern part of Tripp Creek. And so here is the first probably deviation off of what we have on record. What the current map shows is it coming all the way to the end here of Tripp Creek and then going down to Hamilton. Okay? It is my belief that this is the second spot there, not Hamilton Post Office box, because if you can see, that says J.P. Hamilton. That's essentially a map reference to a residence or probably a relatively decent-sized property. And when you read the description, it says that you go to the Mrs. James P. Hamilton, J.P. Hamilton's residence. So that's the residence, and it is not referenced on this map, but it is our understanding that that property at some point in time was known as Waterloo. It's the Waterloo Farm, and that's also referenced there in
So what you're guessing is that at some point, some error or misunderstanding was made between Hamilton residents and Hamilton post office?
Yes, that's, I mean, that's the only logical, because if you continue to follow it, it goes not from the end of Trips Creek. It goes from Trips Creek in the north branch thereof, along to a point at or near the residence of the James P. Hamilton known as Waterloo. So at this point, it should come over here instead of going down. Then the next reference we have is running east along a road. Okay, so that's not incredibly helpful, but from thence nearly east with the road leading from Mrs. Hamilton's residence to a point on the public road leading from Hamilton to Dover Bridge. So Hamilton is here. Dover Bridge is up there, and that's the road they're referencing. Okay, so we need to go east from spot number 2 to this road. And it gives us a pretty clear definition of where we need to head. It talks about the near Ivytown, what they refer to as the Ivytown Colored Church, and I've sort of drawn over that, so. Okay, and you'll see that right here, and I can't really enlarge this too much, but you'll see we have the Colored Methodist Church in or near Ivytown. Okay, so we can fairly assume that the next point of reference on the legal description is about right here where this road touches, and here's the road where it begins, where it says go east along the road until you hit the point of the church in or near Ivytown, and that also intersects with the road from Hamilton to Dover Bridge. Okay? Then it tells us that we just go up, and our map doesn't show all the way up, but up here at some point is the intersecting line for the Easton and Trapp voter districts. You can see that. You can see that here. Okay, that yellow line is what would effectively be this green line. Okay, so it's not to scale. We can't see it, but that's if you can imagine that. And then the final point, so that would be point 4, and then the final point is over here, point 5. It says go east to the Choptank River, and you can see right there is the river. All right, does anybody have any questions about that? You see the river there? So this would just go out, it would go out to the river. And that is, which should be the line. So we have right now this being representative of that district, and this section all in here should be moved back to District 1. And did everybody follow that visually?
You said,
I mean, District 3,
District
I'm sorry. This should be moved back to District 3. And it should all be brown.
So do you know how long this has been this way?
We can't find, at least 2000, but I can't find anything prior to that. Jerry may have more.
This is, the map that we got was from Mark's information.
Well, at some point, somewhere in 2000, I don't know, 6 or 7 or something like that, there were precinct changes where they combined some precincts for polling places, and I'm guessing.
No, I think that was earlier than that. It was like 1880s. Because it was before, it was because of the legislative district change.
Well,
But that didn't affect that area. That was north of Easton. That was put into the legislative district of Queen Anne's County.
I think we're talking about something different.
So my question, I mean, I'm still very confused, but this is extremely helpful to me, and I'm assuming everyone else. How does this relate to what was done to notify voters about a correction on their polling place? How does this relate?
Well, now they have to be notified. I mean, so this group of people who were in here has to be notified that they have a different district.
This is on top of the other 1,200 or so that we talked about.
Well, no, it's inclusive of them,
It
because
is.
they were originally moved into one, thinking that that was the dip,
Yeah.
until the research was done to find out
Oh,
that
they-
this is what happened.
Okay, so they've already been sent one notice and now you're gonna undo it, is
Correct.
that what you're saying? I see.
Yeah. We have to put them back in their correct
Okay.
precinct.
About how many people is that?
Depending on if we use, because Phil and I, when we were talking, if we were to use this line, or if we were to use that straight across line, it's about 200 voters.
So the maps that are out there are showing the error,
Yes,
and the maps are public information.
yes.
And what has been done to rely on that misinformation for the public? That is what has determined the voter rolls? Is that what the voter rolls reflect? Or do the voter rolls reflect what you're saying is the correct?
No, I believe well, Jerry, you can probably answer better, but I believe they reflect the incorrect. They reflect this.
Yeah, but
So how were
previously,
you
They do
able to?
now, because we based it, or when we were going through, we were basing it on that information.
On what information?
On
the dip.
Incorrect?
Dip,
Right.
yes.
So when you sent out the voter notification cards to people saying you're in the wrong polling place and here's the right polling place, you saw this map, and how did you know that this was an error? I mean, how would you have known that?
What,
Without
that
having
this is
gone
an
to
error
anyone?
now? Because we had a voter that
Oh,
called and let us know that he had been through this many times before, and that because he lives on Ocean Gateway.
Somewhere in here.
Yes,
Mhm.
and he let us know that that was in case, not that he should be voting in trap. And at that point, that's when I reached out to Mark and we started looking further in. And then I reached out to Phil to make sure what I was seeing and what Mark was seeing was in fact legally what was being seen.
So how did Mark know that this was an error, as he explained it to you?
Because Joe, that map that Joe produced.
Well,
well,
we overlaid the civil municipal, what is it, the civil,
Minor division or something.
the minor civil division. And I was trying to figure out why the minor civil division and the precinct, or the districts were not the same. So
What is the minor civil division?
it is a layer from US Census Bureau that shows, and I was trying to figure out exactly what it was and why it was different from the districts, and I think it's supposed to be the same, but it wasn't the same. I was trying to figure it out.
Did you get any explanation about what the minor civil division, where their data comes from?
Yeah, and it comes from us. So at some point in time, we gave census this minor civil division, and we also gave census the voter districts. And they weren't the same. And so I was trying to figure out why it wasn't the same. And then I backtracked and looked at maps and tried to figure out what was going on. And then then we're, fast forward, and here we are.
So my next question is, the map that's incorrect, that, I think we've been told in the meeting that the maps are not the prevailing guideline, that what Phil has just gone over with us is the prevailing law. Is that right?
Yes, there is nothing other than this Chapter 572, Act of 1892, that we have located that would warrant this district being changed at any point. You can't just, the census can't come in, or Talbot County, the Board of Elections, or whomever it may be, can't just issue a new map and say, okay, this is the correct drawing, this is the correct districting. It would have to be done through some ordinance.
So, but it was done in actuality because we have these maps that are wrong.
No, it wasn't done in actuality. It was done, it was erroneously done. It would be the equivalent of me now just handing in a new map and saying, okay, this is the new district.
Right.
It's not, for whatever reason, that map was accepted,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not a binding or legal act. I mean, by way of the Constitution of Maryland, there would have to be a formal act to change that district.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the Board of Elections has been sending out notices to people by error in the past, in this area, about their voting districts. Right, we've been
It
been
just happened,
mistakenly-
yes. I know for a fact because of what I did, yes.
Right.
And I believe before because of what the gentleman told me.
So the roles that the state has on voters, where did they come from? Are they also erroneous, or do they have a voter roll that, I don't understand the relationship yet. I'm trying to understand this completely. How is it that the map became wrong and then the voters, obviously somebody must have given the names of the people in this area to the state?
Well, each local board is responsible for their own county voter rolls.
So the Board of Elections establishes the voter rolls, gives them to the state.
It's a database. It's the database that is used. It's called MD Voters.
But the county Board of Elections gives that information that determines the databases, right?
Yeah, it's one big database that's used for each local board. And each local board only has access to their own counties. You can view other counties, but you can only have access to your own county.
So when you were correcting this misinformation, you were going to the maps and trying to determine what the correct mapping area was to show where the voters that were incorrectly identified were, so that you could send out those verification cards, right? You weren't going to the state and asking them, you didn't have anything from the state that showed the correct voters. You had to go to this map.
We based it on what the district precincts were that Mark has in his system, correct?
Yes, so when I started as the GIS manager for Talbot County, my source of information was a product from Maryland Department of Planning called Census View. And Census View is developed from, it's a state of Maryland product developed from census information. So census, the original layers, the original data is derived here at Talbot County Planning. It's sent to U.S. Census. U.S. Census has a database. It got sent back to the state of Maryland. The state of Maryland, which is Maryland Department of Planning, packaged it and gave it back to us. And that was my source of information.
So your
That's what I did.
information showed that line straight across rather than the dip.
It showed both. It showed the line across, which was the minor civil division, and it showed the dip as being the voter district.
Where else is there a minor civil division? Anywhere else in the county?
There is nowhere else in the county where the minor civil division is different from the districts. And what's thus my confusion as to, okay, why is this different?
Right,
And
so,
so, and then researching back.
so when you got that discrepancy, when you saw that discrepancy, was it when Jerry came to you and said, we have some voter that says he's in or wrong, and you saw that it was in that area and then started looking further?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So, I just feel like I have to understand this because, if a voter comes to me and says, what happened? I have got to be able
Absolutely.
to explain this.
Yeah.
So, Phil, what needs to be done legally to, it's obviously a correction, but it's such a huge correction for us. 1,200 voters is 10%. It's a big number for us.
Well, for this particular one, it's about 200 voters.
Oh,
To put them back where they were well, depending on, it's 150 voters if we use that minor civil division.
Mhm.
It's a little more, it's about 50 more voters if we include where Phil had showed you that line,
Straight line.
according to what his interpretation of this boundary.
So what are your recommendations and determinations?
Well, the notice requirement, I think, is all we need to do. I mean, we just need to comply with the notice as set forth by the State Board of Elections. I don't want to do anything more. It's going to be 200 people who are going to find out that they're voting at a different place, and we're required to give them notice.
Well,
Okay.
previously, this triangle, weren't they registered in the 3rd district tract?
Yes. So they're just going back in part of that area. Now, the other part of it, I'd have to do the research if you decide on that, or if Phil's recommendation is to use that straight line. But using that minor civil division, those people were already entrapped. That's what started the whole trying to find out what happened here because of that gentleman who's reached out to us.
Do you have any information where the determination came from that they should be entrapped previously while the maps were showing they were in Easton?
I'm sorry, I'm
How
not
was it
sure.
decided that they should be entrapped when the maps were showing that they were in Easton?
Phil
What
said
did that come from?
he couldn't tell.
Because the dip is showing in the information that we were using to update the voter registration
No,
information.
but how did they get into the 3rd district originally?
That I can't answer. That I don't know.
I mean, because that goes way back, but
Because originally they had the information from the district.
I think that dip didn't exist before, and then there was a combination where the precincts were combined. I think there was a 3-1, a 3-2, and a 3-3,
right,
right? And now there's only a 3-1 and a 3-3.
right.
And the 3-2 went away. And when that happened, and it was after 2000 at some point, I think that's when that happened.
So that's a guess, but the big thing.
That's a guess, yeah.
The big thing is that with what you've said, to me, there's a clear acknowledgement that there was an error. And so there's an argument to correct the error, which is what you just said, that it has to be corrected and there's a basis for correction.
Yeah, I don't think we need to acknowledge an error.
Well, but how do you explain to voters who were voting in a different precinct before and now are told that they're gonna vote in this district?
Well,
Well,
they're going to be put back, aren't they?
Right.
For the most part, they're going to be put back where they were.
Right. So they were in District 1,
Right.
and then we told them they're going to District 3,
No,
The
opposite.
other way.
Right, the other way, yeah.
3 to 1,
Yeah.
and now we're telling them they're going back.
Right.
There is no reason to do anything other than what is required by the notice provision, which is just simply you're moving back. If
I see what
if
you're
they
saying.
ask, you can tell them what happened, but I don't think it makes sense to put out there that, you know, there's this map that we deem to be incorrect and now it's being fixed and, you know, that's the reasoning for it. That's not what you're required to do. Give them the notice. If they have questions about it, concerns, they'll get in touch with us and we can explain, you know, what's happened.
Okay, I understand.
So what do we say in very simple terms? What do we say if somebody calls or if somebody asks? I mean, they're not gonna be calling me, but if somebody asks me, why was I over here and then I was over here and now I'm back here? What would I say? In very plain, simple, uncomplicated words.
The map was corrected.
Okay, that sounds good. That sounds good. I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, 'cause that's all that's happening is we're correcting. I don't, you know, we don't know when this dip came to be. You know, we don't know when that happened.
Mhm.
So
I wonder if it was shortly after the change because it was misinterpreted, the village of Hamilton versus the property of Hamilton's. And I've looked in the library of the maps from, who is it does the maps? US something puts out the maps. Huh? Geological Survey. And they showed the era back in, I think, 1912.
They showed that dip.
Yeah, they showed the dip then.
So then the census thing, that
Oh,
doesn't,
yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was
1912.
straight across, okay, so, yeah, I don't know how long this has gone on then.
and there, I mean, we have found nothing to suggest that there should have been a change. And the current code, I mean, I think that there's some relevancy to the fact that the current code doesn't reference, I mean, this is the last reference,
and is that
which is
what
in
you-
1892, which is what we're looking at. So if there was something in 1912
Right.
or thereabouts, we don't know how it happened.
So is there anything legally that would cause a problem because the precedent seems to be so long that this dip is what the voter has taken as the precinct divides? Is there,
I mean,
1912 to now, that's almost 100,
More than-
that's a long time.
Yeah. I don't know that there would be a precedent issue. I mean, the precedent is that, meaning that we've lived with it being incorrect for so long that therefore it's correct.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is my question.
Well, I can't imagine. I mean,
But the people weren't registered wrong. They were registered in Trap District until they were changed in the
Right.
fall, or whatever it was.
Right,
But
so
they had
you-
been moved, because that's what the gentleman told me. He said, I have been through this before. So this is not, unfortunately, this has come about at some other time. I don't know when. He said he had been voting for like 40 years, and he had gone through this before.
where they tried to make him vote down here.
Up
In Easton.
in Easton,
Oh, so he was
Instead of
in,
Trap.
correct.
he was in here and they tried to make him vote in here and he's
Correct.
fought it.
Does the voters' record show which precinct they were originally
yeah.
registered in, or?
Because it's a database that was implemented in 2006, it doesn't go back any further than that.
What about the maps that are showing this dip? Where are they?
They're on your website.
Everywhere.
They're on our website.
Yeah, they're
It's
everywhere.
kind of like cells.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we were using as our district precinct information.
Right. Well, if we're going to, I mean, it's already been done in a way because the voter notification cards have been sent out, so.
Well, not for the correction.
Not
That has
for
to be
this.
done today.
I see.
The
Okay.
deadline is today at 4:30. So I have to get those out today.
I see, okay.
So if it's determined, that's why I wanted to meet before deadline today.
So if this is going to happen, those maps have to be withdrawn, so otherwise it'll just confuse people more if they go on site and see. That has to be, they have to be
Yeah.
removed
Can you correct
today.
Absolutely, I could do that.
And
I
I
can't
don't
do
know
it
where
without
else they are. Are they
your
in the
blessing,
county?
Yeah.
Right.
Are these
Yeah, they're on the
maps?
state, I mean, they're on the state.
Yeah, so
Let me see if I can get to it.
what kind of effort would it take to get those removed today?
Well, I have a return call for April Shelley, who is in Department of Planning and Zoning. She called me yesterday about something different, so I can kind of fill her in on what is Shelley April. I said April Shelley, Shelley April. So it's hard when they've got two first names. But I can talk to her at that point to find out what is needed at the Department of Planning and Zoning, or planning, not zoning,
Planning.
Department of Planning, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that those maps are in lots of different places, and I don't know who relies on whom, but there has to be some kind of a planned effort to make sure that the information out there is not the information that we're gonna change if we're gonna go ahead with this.
Well, can we form a motion that you need to take to authorize him to change the maps and authorize you to send these corrections out? Can we form a motion to do that?
Phil, what should we have in the motion?
And which line do you want?
And, because that's the thing, we're only restoring district, we're not changing districts, we're only restoring the district to what it should be. Is that my understanding of what this whole,
Right.
To what it was designated in 1892?
correct?
Yeah, I would make the motion to restore the voting district to the last known record of Chapter 572 of the Act of 1892 of the Maryland General Assembly. To restore the voting district as represented in the last known designation as set forth in Chapter 572 of the Acts of 1892 of the Maryland General Assembly.
And Phil, can I ask you, since it's not been put on the table yet, do we use that line, or do we use that minor civil division as the basis for that change? Or
Do you know where the minor civil division comes from?
So,
The census? or-
It came from, I think originally it came from Talbot County Plan. That's how it's submitted to census.
So they probably misinterpreted too.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like that's a legitimate point of use then.
I mean, it's,
That's
if we're relying on what you gave us to make this notification, then we should probably follow through and rely on this for everything,
Straight line.
rather than bring in something else that is questionable where the origin of that is.
Yeah.
so this yellow line is the minor civil division line. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And we have it really from up here. Oh, I see your black
Yeah,
line.
there's the black line,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would use the
Black line.
black
Yeah.
line.
Yeah,
Because
so
there's
straight
no
line.
indication that it comes down to the end of Tripp's Creek.
Right. So, okay,
I mean, and this is why it makes sense that I think they just brought it down from the end of Tripp's Creek and then just brought it, straight to this point down here. down
Well, I think
to
they
Hamilton
misinterpreted
Post
the
Office.
Hancock, I mean, the
Can-
Hamilton.
Hamilton Post Office, but
Well, how do you formulate the words to describe that black line? Or you just say, you can use the words we just said, and then that's
Reference.
it. And
Yeah.
these
Reference,
the
yeah.
professionals
We'll
correct
map
the
it out.
thing. Okay,
Yes.
So,
Right.
I make a motion that we restore the voting districts for District 1 and District 3 to the last known district contained in Chapter 572 of the Acts of 1892. Is that what I'm supposed to say?
I would, if you have the acts right there, so I would just say that we move to restore the boundary line between the trap election district or District 3, it's right here. So right here, I would just read, I would make that motion, but instead of to change, to restore.
I move to restore the boundary line between trapped election district or District 3 and the Eastern Election District or District 1 in Talbot County to
As represented in.
or as represented in Chapter 572 of the Acts of 1892. Since I'm the secretary, I should get it right.
Now, Phil, the black line, do you have it from the mouth or from the north branch of Trips Creek?
The black line is from, it looks to be the north,
North branch?
yeah, you see here.
It says the mouth here.
Well, no, the.
It follows the creek.
Mouth.
If you look at, if you look at this map, that. Okay, so. This, so right here is, I guess, where the Hamilton residence is, correct? So it would just come off the creek right there,
Mhm.
and then I suspect there was, well, according to the other map, there was a road, you know, that started here, and then it just says, follow it east, over to the church. So it shouldn't come down to the end, there's nothing to suggest that it should come to the end of the creek. I mean, in theory, if it came to the end of the creek, it would then have to go back up to the Hamilton residence, which,
Doesn't seem logical.
Well, the mouth is out here,
right,
isn't it?
yeah,
But
so
it follows
It's
the
not
creek.
here, it's out here.
the
But the
mouth,
residence is,
the mouth is here, right here,
Right.
right, but you come up
Mhm.
and on the other map, it's, you know,
So
much
this
more to scale,
matches.
but it's there
Okay.
rather than going to the end of, what is it, the foot of the creek, is that what we
Yeah,
decided?
that's- I think we said that was the foot.
Okay.
And then it would just, and this is probably, it would just go from this point over to the church.
Says the north branch thereof.
Right, so you follow it from the mouth up along the north branch
North
of the
branch.
creek until the
Fixed
Hamilton
dividing
resident.
line.
Mhm.
Okay. So I have just one question. If we do this, will whatever that other thing was called,
we will correct it and send it to census and make the correction with the state.
so will that other line change?
Yes. Mhm.
The,
No, the municipal line will change.
No,
No, no, no, the.
will that change?
Minor civil division and the precinct district line will change to what you,
Well, it
So
all
the
came from
minor
the county
civil
originally,
division
right?
change will be made to match with what this is?
yes,
Oh, okay.
Right.
and it will be the same. Which I think is the intent, is what it's supposed to be.
I think, Phil, you had also said in an earlier suggested language, to the last known.
Yeah, I would make sure to put it to
That
the
word
last
is in it,
known.
right,
Yeah.
last known. Restore to the last known Last
Last
known,
known what?
location?
I would say an act to restore the boundary line between Trap Election District or District Number 3 and Eastern Election District or District Number 1 in Talbot County in accord with the last known boundary line division as represented in Chapter 572, Acts of 1892.
And I hate to stop everybody, but we have to be out of here.
Oh, that's right.
We can move to room 3 to continue. It's a much smaller room, but we will have to kind of confine, it's gonna be a little more confined. So I don't know what you wanna do, or we can go into our office.
Do we take the action on this and then leave?
Well, there was the other question about hers as well, so that's why I was gonna say about,
Oh, the control, we can make that separate.
Well, I know, but
I
We've got a
understand.
motion.
I mean, all I wanna do is get this motion
Gotcha.
solved.
Okay.
We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it. I'm still thinking.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
No opposed? Okay, motion passes. And you'll take care of notifying everybody that needs to be notified. Is that
I will
true?
work with the planning office
Planning,
and,
okay.
our county attorney and make sure the information goes appropriately to the US Census.
And you will make every effort to remove the maps that are on wherever they are.
I will have to have that one removed today, as long as I can, either I will have Teresa if she has access, or I will talk to Parker to have him remove it.
Right.
And
Okay,
we can-
can we get copies of the district maps?
Yes.
Can the colored maps, can we get, each of us have a copy of
Of the,
Which,
the new one? The,
when it's done,
yeah.
So we have to change District 1, Precinct 2, and District 3,
precinct 1.
Precinct 1.
And we'll have to take down the full map, the large map,
Right.
of all the district
That's to be
precincts.
Right.
adjusted.
and that's on the state as well.
So those are 3 separate maps that we have on the website, on the election board website. So we'll replace those. And then I'll print some for your wall, and then we'll pass around those same maps for your board. Okay.
I hate
Well-
to put you on the spot there.
Well, I mean, this meeting is called, I presume was called in accord with.
Was
all
this
of
on the
notice.
agenda? I just remember reading.
It's under Attorney's report.
Yeah, but there's something that says if we take action in a vote, that we have to give the public notice. I think it's something that's new.
Well, if we want to move, I can look at that. Well,
Yeah, can we go to the other one? Mark, see what other information.
I'm gonna go right recess.
Well, I don't think we'll recess.
Specific
She said
information as
that's the only
possible
one
so
show.
that we
Who won't show
can
up?
The people who are in that
explain
meeting
to
room.
affected voters
Oh,
and the
oh,
public
really?
That's the
for
way
the
you said
new
words.
That's
voter
interesting.
registration card.
Okay. All right, so let me just take a look at that to see.
Mark, the other question was, Waddell said that her precinct has been
Who's
changed.
sitting here, Susan?
And the way I look at the map, she was correct before. But the map is, her street is the dividing line.
Oh, is that right?
And the odd number are in 1-2, and the even numbers are in 1-5. and she was changed to 1-2.
Okay.
And she lives on, was it Penny Lane?
Yes.
Are we gonna have room for him to be able to put his,
That
he
doesn't,
was done with that part of it?
yeah,
I
he said
think- I
it
don't
over
think
here.
it
Oh,
is.
there it is.
Excuse me.
What was the address again?
Penny Lane.
Here it is.
All right, so Penny Lane is in that subdivision. The whole subdivision is in 1-2.
How'd it get there?
How did it get there? Is it not supposed to be 1-2?
See, he's saying according to the map he's got, that it's,
According to the map on the website, it's 1-5. But, you know, it divides right down Penny
District
Lane.
Precinct is 1-2. 1-2. It looks correct.
What? 1-2.
Mhm.
Yeah, but how'd it get to be 1-2? Because it had previously been 1-5, and according to the map shows it is 1-5.
What map?
The one we have on the website, on our website.
The map I have has it in 1-2, so I
Where'd
don't know
that
why
map
they
come
would
from?
put part of the subdivision in and part of the subdivision out. It
Well, a
looks
lot
like-
of times the streets are the dividing line, and apparently, the way I see it, Penny Lane is the dividing line.
oh, so
On the
you have
map.
it so he can see it?
Yeah, it's the one that's on the map. The blue line is the dividing line. It shows, you, to my impression, going down Penny Lane.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, here it see how the label is. The label is actually labeling the road and covers up the blue line
Right.
that is underneath the label. So but I have it here. You can see it. Yeah. Let me turn off the addresses so you can see it more clear. So you're definitely inside the line. This red line goes outside the back of these houses, and that's precinct 1-2.
So they've been wrong all along too then.
No, this has been correct.
Well,
we
She
we
got it.
corrected it.
She got it.
That was where we
1-5.
corrected it.
Yeah, this is one new card.
Okay,
She's
but
one
you
of
were
the-
in 1-5 before.
Oh, I don't know. I
Yeah.
used to vote
Community
at
Center
the community
was
center,
1-5.
and then I received this.
But there's 16 addresses on that.
And then what confused me was that
that
I
are-
had these two places. I didn't know what. I couldn't interpret this to explain this.
The second one is because you live in the town of Easton.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where you would vote for your municipal.
Locally.
Yes, and the top one.
I mean, I know
is-
that now because you
Yes.
told me.
But
So
that's,
that card itself was confusing to you?
Yeah, this
May I
card
see
was
it?
confusing.
It
to
always
me.
is with the
I did the
municipal
same
elections
thing
on
last
there.
time. I did. I lived in Easton. I went to the firehouse and I should have gone to the community center.
It doesn't
I did
say
the same
that.
thing.
That's why it's confusing.
Mhm.
It doesn't even
doesn't-
say
It does not identify
municipal
What?
election.
what, do you mind?
No.
It's
That's not
confusing
right.
because it doesn't identify why there are two sites. It needs to identify.
That's my point. Yep.
And
It's
actually,
I thought it
not a-
used to.
It's not a
I
good,
thought it did too.
It used to say municipal.
it needs to say that. I don't know who.
Let me look at that because
Yeah.
I thought it did
That's
say,
very
oh, I'm sorry,
confusing.
Joe. Did you want to hold on a minute?
Information on it.
Here you go.
So it does, I thought above that, it
Right,
should
yeah.
say municipal.
Sure,
Yeah, it used to have a
absolutely.
municipal.
And
That is confusing.
I don't know
this
if
way.
that's something the state changed or if that's something we can,
Right. You should
Move.
point that out.
Oh, I
because
will.
It's
I'm going to.
absolutely, that's,
Wow,
that's
that's,
terrible.
yeah, I always thought that it said municipal and
And then you
underneath
show
it.
up at the wrong place.
Right,
You feel like
right. Of course. I mean, that's just
Now you got
asking.
3 possible places to vote.
That's
That
right.
really needs,
I'm gonna talk to.
How about Wyoke Street? Is it 1-5 or 1-2?
before you
Street?
send those
Because
Is Matthewstown run?
notifications
It,
out.
well, it's in
If
this.
that's
Yeah, I believe it is
They
in
have to go out
Matthewstown.
today?
Yeah, that's 1-5.
They have to
How
go
many
out
of them
there.
are there?
Depending on what was decided, I've got to work with Mark to find out how many more. I think there's like 50 more people possibly that are involved, so about 200 people.
So can you get a stamp or something that's just asking for trouble?
I don't know that any of those. I'd have to look to see if any of them are within town limits. I'm not sure any of them are.
Have you got yours, Rich?
Mhm.
'Cause it doesn't show.
I don't have it with me.
Mine with me.
Are you available today?
Mhm.
Okay, good, because they have to go out.
After 1 o'clock.
Okay, because they have to go out today.
Okay.
Today's our federal or state deadline of changing polling places.
All right. I will come to your office
Please,
at 1 o'clock.
yes.
Are we waiting for Phil?
Yeah,
Is
he's
that what
looking
we're
up
doing?
something.
Okay.
Well, no, he's looking up her question about whether
About
we could
notice, yeah.
do what we did.
So I will.
Okay. Right.
Are we? We're good.
Yeah,
you have any
as
other
far as
questions
I
for me?
know, I don't think there was anything else. Well, let's make sure Phil doesn't have anything else for you, but I think
Okay, I'll
we're
ask him.
good. Okay,
Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.
You're welcome.
Thanks for your help. You've been really helpful.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
it's confusing.
it is. It
Yeah.
has been a long process that I
Well,
would
so
like
the
to
only
see
other
end.
place that's the road's a dividing line is Dover Road.
Well,
Oh, there's a
Dover
lot.
Road. Well, there's a bunch through Easton.
Yeah,
Yeah, Brooklets.
Oh, okay.
And-
Precincts are.
yeah. There was
there's a
of them.
bunch. Bay
I
Street.
can't even.
Yeah,
right now,
there's-
I can't even think of all
There's
of them.
probably
but
a
there
dozen
were,
through
yes,
Easton.
Really?
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite a lot. It goes, it kind of zigzags and.
That's
goes
why
through.
Well,
we
the
took
alley,
Yeah,
every
from
road.
Washington Street is.
yeah.
Yeah,
Washington
Robert
Street's
And
a
that's
big
just
one.
precincts, and then you have to go do the school board
Yeah,
districts,
and the school
and then you have to
board-
do the wards.
And then the wards, and that's
And
for
then
another
that's-
day.
it's- yeah,
But we don't worry about the wards.
We are gonna worry, but we're not gonna worry about them until soon.
No, we're not gonna worry, period. We're just gonna do what we have to do.
That
I
is what
refuse
I'm
to
trying to do. But I can tell you, well, nights have been spent that I work harder at night than I do during the day sometimes.
So there's no interference, huh?
No, I mean, while I'm trying to sleep.
Oh, trying to thinking. Okay.
I'm just really, I really thought this one was done, and then this cropped up, and that's why I wanted, and it has to go out today. It has to. Oh, and I talked to Teresa, and she believes that she can remove the maps. So once everything is decided, I told her after the meeting we would sit down and I would let her know which ones have to be. But she believes that she can remove them.
Okay, we were discussing the judges list. Are we finished discussing that?
I'm just excited about getting training started, honestly. I have got 3 trainers that are going to be helping us out, and I'm hoping these judges are going to have a great experience. I know the ones I've talked to are really excited about getting started.
Well, you do want to clarify
in terms of the numbers of judges at each polling place, you gave us a list. And the numbers that the numbers of people that you've assigned can manage the election that's coming up, the primary. Okay. That was the core question. You were saying, though, that you still need some more to cover in the event that people call in sick or don't show.
And if you noticed, when I sent this out to you, 1-3 is not an actual precinct. It is the combination with 1-1. So this is where I've housed the standby judges. So right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I have 13 standby judges. Some that I have not heard back from that I have to reach out to, like Mr. Hembry, I haven't heard from him. So I don't know how to get in contact with him other than I've sent him the information. Okay, so I'll have to look again and see where it is.
I thought this was the,
And that I've updated since then.
Oh, you haven't shared that with us.
Well, I just printed it off today. Honestly, I have not been in the office, or when I have been, there have been a lot of things that have been going on, and I have not had the opportunity
So
to.
you no longer have a list that includes standby judges, they've all been assigned somewhere?
No, I still have a list of standby judges.
Oh.
I have not put them all in the precincts that may be lacking 1 or 2 people.
Okay, so there's something that's all we can do with that.
But they are, all the ones that you have, with the exception of the ones that I heard from recently, which was Pamela Martinson and Rebecca Milholland and Marion Smith. I believe you have all the rest of the names.
You haven't heard from Marion Smith?
I think, honestly, I have to remember. I know that I reached out to her. The problem is if people don't have emails, that's where I have my biggest, because to me an email works so quickly. I can send it out, I can send them the voter, the judges training, I can send them out everything they need right then. So that's where my problem is, and right now I don't have her. I can't remember if I've reached out to her or not. I know I talked to her husband. So I know that there has been conversation, I just haven't put her in a place yet. And I'm gonna have to talk to you about Martin, because I don't remember receiving anything back, so I do wanna find out. I'll look again. But with what I have right now, with the exception of not being able to have them evenly balanced, but having both parties represented, we are ready to go on election day.
Well, I think you have to have evenly balanced,
Well,
or no more
you
than
have
one
to
different.
try.
No more than one different. No, the law says you have to have
I
it.
understand that, I understand, but I can only do what I can do.
Well, Gary Skirka, do you know where he stands?
The information was sent out on the 8th of March, and I have not heard any
Okay.
information back.
And how about Marilyn Keenan?
You asked me about that. That name doesn't even, I don't even remember that
Well,
name.
can you send her information then?
Do you have the information?
All I have is her name, and I know she lives in Oxford. And
Because sometimes
Diane
I send
Clark-
out information, if I don't get information back, what was the other name?
Diane Clark.
I think I reached out to her. I don't remember that. I don't remember what her response was.
And
I know one lady said that, I've got my vacation plan, which is the bad part about a June primary. So they couldn't help. So I can try to reach out.
And you said you had questions about Wayne Layfield.
There's a responsibility of having to set up and break down the polling places, and I just was wondering, is he going to be able to help with that? That's one of the things that is one of my concerns.
Well, when you had the person in the wheelchair, could they help?
Oh,
you?
yeah.
I found them.
Yeah. He set up signs, he went out.
Well, Mike,
But I will reach out to him.
I going through and look, and you some places you have more Republicans than Democrats, and
And I think it says over, well, I'm not gonna try to interpret the law, but I thought it was, well, okay, I'm listening, I'm sorry.
My point is that someplace, it's so, it may be one extra there, but then one place where you had, let me see, you had, maybe that was the only one, 4 and 3 there, 5 and 4 there, 3 and 4 there, 5 and 3 there, 3 and 4, 3 and 4.
But it says each polling
7.
place you have an equal number.
Yeah. Here, this is the one here,
It's not overall.
the firehouse has a predominant, it's not very close, it's an 8-3 split.
And unaffiliated can be used as either.
So, yeah, 8-3, so you get 8-4, but that's a 2-1, where the rest of them are just like 1 or 2 different. I'm just curious about why that particularly, which is the largest voting area, I think.
I will add some to the,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll do what I can. I'll do what I can.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that I've got coverage on election day. That's my biggest concern.
You can only do what you can do with the numbers that you have, so, I mean, I think we all understand that. And there's an intent to balance it. I just don't see how you can, if you only have a certain number of judges on either side, and that's all you have, and you've made an effort to balance, there's nothing more that could be expected. That's just reasonable.
I do. I mean, I've been doing this since 2012, and my sole goal is to try to put equal numbers in as much as possible. So I'm familiar with what needs to be done, but I also know that on election day we've got to have people in the polling places. That's what I'm not trying to be aloof. I'm not trying to be, I just want to make sure that I've got people trained and ready to work election day so that we have a good election.
Can I ask about Whitman? There's 3 small polling places, Whitman, Tillman, and Bosman. In Whitman, you have 5 judges, and it has 620 primary voters. The other 2 are smaller, and you have 7. Is there a particular reason for that? Or?
Okay, so Whitman is
5-1.
5-1. Okay, there. I think we had 5-1.
For the
That
3
is because
small ones, it has the most judges.
trying to find somebody who lives in that area to work. I do want to add one more person to that polling place because they need one more voting judge, but I'm trying to find somebody, and I think I did have somebody the other day that came in. I mean, I really would rather not have somebody, actually there is a gentleman that is from Tillman that I'm going to reach out to assign to that one. And then what was the other one, 5-2?
Well, yeah, 5-2 and 2-2. You have 7.
And the reason for 5-2 is that Mr. Fields had asked if...
Mr. Fields is not in 5-2. He's in
Okay.
3-3.
I'm sorry. 5-2, all right, what was, there was
It's
1,
Tillman.
2, 3, 4,
There's 7 there,
5,
and there's
6,
7 in Bosman. And Bosman's the smallest number of voters of any.
And
And in
what
St.
was
Michael's,
the-
you've got 1,800 voters, and you still only have 7 there.
And again, that's because I haven't finished the complete rolls. It's just, I've still got people that I can put into those places. For Tillman, it was a matter of speaking with Charlotte, and we've got 2, 1, and 2 voting judges. That was the reason I try to have 2 voting judges in each polling place, 2 check-in judges, which 2 chiefs, and a provisional. So that's kind of the baseline for most of them.
But you don't have that in Whitman?
Well, like I said, I'm trying to find people who are, that's why I'm trying to get 1 more voting judge there. And Yeah, and I'm missing a check-in judge there as well. So I'm trying to get somebody who's in that area to work. I will have to pull from somebody from Easton. I'm just trying to keep it closer to that area.
In St. Michael's, are you putting additional ones there? You only have 7 there, and that's almost 1,900 voters there compared to Boston and Whitman and Tillman. It's a lot larger, and we've had problems there in the past.
And again, sure, I mean, there's 2, let's see, we've got 2 check-ins, so. And problems by, can you elaborate on what type of problems, just so I'm kind of aware of it?
60 people in line at a time, 2 hours to vote.
Wow. And was that with this new system, with the paper ballots, or was that with the
That
old
was not
system?
with the paper ballots, no.
Okay. I'm just trying to learn, that's all. I'm not,
It was just, it's a busy place.
okay,
It's,
okay. I can definitely put 1 to 2 voting judges in there. And what was the other one? I'm sorry, Joe. What was the other one you said?
I forgot to pick.
You did talk about Tillman at one point.
Well, Tillman, oh, the other one was Bosman. We've got
Bosman was.
2-1, or 2-2. We've got 7 there, and it's got the least number of voters of any.
And that is the one, that was 2-2. Why did I put it there? I think the reasoning was that husband and wife team. 2 chiefs, 2
Husband and wife team.
check-ins, provisional, and 2. Well, the baseline is trying to keep 7. 2 voting judges, 2 check-in judges, 2 chiefs, and a provisional. So that's what I'm trying to keep in each polling place, so that
As a
people.
minimum.
So 7's like the minimum, is that right?
I would recommend that, yes.
On Cordova, you have 9, but there's 2,600 voters there. Do you plan to add any there? Because you have 3 check-in, but only 3 voting judges. Generally, there's more voting judges than check-in, right?
Yeah, if you can, yeah.
Well, there's 2 on the standby list that vote there. Have they been moved up there?
Sure.
Angela Brown
Well-
and Martin Henry, and I'll contact everybody.
And actually, that, and see, that was where I had kind of stopped the process because you were looking more for the evening out, and that's why I.
If you move those 2 up there, you'd still only do one different, which is, Nikki said, yeah, that's permissible, in her opinion.
Nikki what?
Nikki said, when you can't get exactly even, or if you have an odd number, it's all right to have one difference. 5 of one and 4 of the other. in her opinion. All right, we were going to discuss, next on the issue is, I guess we better do May meeting time change. Your suggestion was we have that at 9:30 in the morning instead of
Correct.
7 at night.
Well, okay, sorry. Well, is that a new business item?
Yes,
Yes, it was
business.
listed.
Are we done with old business? Because we thought we had, wanted to discuss, some more about not just the recruiting, but what was the other thing that?
Well, the other thing's run to new business.
Yeah, we
recruiting,
were going to discuss
salaries.
we were going to discuss the
Wrong.
way we're going to handle the rollout of the issue. We got the 1,200 voter cards that went out,
Oh,
notification cards. We asked you to come back to this meeting with a plan so that we're not caught without a clear way of explaining why so many cards went out. We don't, we plan before we get inundated.
Is he still here?
Well, Phillips, when he said that we had sent the notification card by state law, that is what we have to do, and that's our due diligence. But I also was planning on highlighting in red on the specimen ballot verbiage that says, please check your polling place for election day or go to early voting type thing. That was what Phil had said, that we had done our due diligence by sending out the voter notification.
I think this
cards.
goes beyond that. That goes beyond it. Be ahead of the curve in terms of any kind of issue that might show up. For instance, maybe an article might appear in a paper that explains that talks about this. How would we respond to a reporter asking us why were there 1,200 so many voter registration changes made? That was the issue. How do we explain that? Be
Phil's
ahead of
gonna
the
come
curve.
back in, and
Yeah.
he said what he suggested is we have a statement written so that everybody gets the same statement.
Maybe something like that. But I think what we said in the last meeting was that we would come back with a plan so we'd be ahead of the curve on that.
Well, can we wait till he comes back in? He's still researching something.
Yeah.
Did we get a motion on the May meeting time change?
No, we did not, because I thought that was new business. I was trying
Well,
to stay
I got
within
all
the-
these others under new business, really.
Oh, okay.
These other things, and some of them they weren't on the agenda for old business, so.
Okay. All right.
Oh, okay. Okay, under the thing for if somebody calls or your response about the second notice of change, your recommendation is that we not do anything with the notice, but we have a statement form. If somebody calls, we have a standard written statement to read.
Yeah, what do you mean about do anything with the notice?
Not send any notice that explanation of the.
Right, I think
Of the
that
change.
there has to be the notice provided, and
The
that's
voter notification card will go out today.
okay.
Yes.
So Phil, one of the things that we noticed, because Wadella showed us, on the voter notification card, there are two sites depending upon what election is going on, but there's no indication of why those two sites are indicated. And so it becomes a very confusing notification.
It used to say municipal, but apparently it hasn't recently.
And so, under these circumstances, that was
Yeah.
the card that was sent out, but it ends up being that it's a card that is a very confusing card.
Well, at least the people in that area won't have a municipal election. Will they get any information there? Will they say anything? I mean, they won't say anything there, will it? Since they're not in a municipality.
It's gonna give their
Oh,
polling place.
Right, but I mean, it won't say anything where that has a municipality. It won't give anything.
Right, if they're not in a municipal district, there
It
won't
won't
be a
show anything.
second polling place.
But we don't know at this point whether those verification cards were printed with the reason for the two polling places eliminated as a mistake, an
Yeah, I
oversight.
don't know when it happened either. Do you?
But
Have any idea?
No, I think we're-
the result is that the voter gets this card and doesn't know what those two places mean.
Yeah, it's very
Well,
confusing.
we have two or three topics going on at one time.
Well,
The Phyllis was addressing simply the little dip issue, and that was and that affects no municipality. So the issue raised by Wadella's card doesn't apply. Am I-
Well, it does, because those cards are gonna be sent out and they're gonna be printed the same way that that card is sent out. So it's like an additional,
No, it's not. It's not going to have two polling places. It'll only have one polling place.
All of them will only have
All in
one
the dip,
polling
in the
place?
dip.
The one
the
in,
dip.
in the change from districts, change from 1 to 3, because they're not inside of any town. But the others, some of the others,
Okay, thanks.
the others were sent out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we need to get it
The
corrected,
dip. So the.
because it's very confusing.
And if I understood, for the purposes of the record, the issue that we spent some time on about the line was addressed by simply sending them the new voter registration cards, which have to go out today. And anyone that calls in, the answer was, we've corrected the map, and this is the result. And that was the handling of that.
But I think we should have a written statement what to read to them.
Yeah, that would be good. My
So
question.
that everybody gets the same answer.
My question revolves around the conclusion at the last meeting in which Ms. Cook was asked to return to the next board meeting with suggestions for the board to consider, and that was regarding the large number of voter registration cards that went out prior to the last meeting. There were the 1,200 or so, somewhere, maybe there were some large number, and that we should be prepared proactively to explain why there was such a large number of cards. We threw out a number of ideas on the table at the last meeting, and I think Jerry was going to come back and tell us what kind of plan we should have about responding to questions that come up for that large number.
Well, quite honestly, since all of it has been sent out, and I don't know what will happen on election day, but what has been sent out, we've only had maybe a handful of people who have even contacted us about the change. And like I had said, for me, I was going to, because we had talked about the fact that sending the voter notification card by state law is what is expected, and then also put it in the specimen ballot in red lettering that pay careful attention to your polling place listed on this specimen ballot. I don't know. I don't know what, because the way that I was not able to drill it down to actually because of what Mark and I worked on in MD Voters, that 1,200 is not all just because of what we did. It could have been it could be 800, because there were the others that were going on when we were doing our ERIC report, which is when people are notified if they move within county or if they move from county into, from out of county into our county. So it's a combination of both things going on at the same time.
So that's the answer, in effect, is the answer is not just that it was 1,200 or so at the time went out. And there's several causes for that kind of coincided to cause that large number. And I think that's what I think we need to drill at is, if somebody raises the issue, I don't know who would raise it, but somebody would raise the issue about why did you have so many? Is that customary? The answer is, and that's what I want to know, what the answer to that question would be.
What we told the people who called and asked is that, and this was given to me as a recommendation from the state board, that during my time of learning the street files, that I then saw some discrepancies, administrative errors in the database, and I worked with the county to update that information.
Okay.
That's what I have been telling people at this point.
And that's fine. That's what I thought we were going to hear back today on how that was going to be. Don't want to use the word spun, but how it will be reported.
Oh, I thought I had told you when it all first happened. I apologize. I thought that.
No, we said we were going to come back to this meeting with that.
Okay.
Said we'd come back to this meeting.
So I'm satisfied with that. After having gone through what we went through earlier as well, I understand more that what is happening and what has happened with these sending out of voter notification cards is more of a trying to make the information correct and matching with whatever it is that we have to guide us in what's correct. So I understand that, but now I have a bigger concern with those voter notification cards and the fact that they do not indicate to the voter why there are two, in the case where there are district and precinct elections, why there are two addresses. And so I would like to see new voter notification cards go out to everyone with that indicator on it, because
You want 28,000 voter notification cards to go out?
yes, because what I'm seeing, if Waddella is an example, it is so confusing because it doesn't indicate why there are, in the case where there are two, it doesn't indicate to the voter, and so that is a huge confusion. And it may be on an individual basis and I'm seeing it, but it's not the way it should be. It's not so it's the same, for me, it's the same as what we just did. We're trying to correct something that needed correcting.
With 28,000, I would have to enlist a printer because we don't have the resources within our office
Yeah,
to
I understand.
do 28,000.
But-
And at this point, because we are reaching the deadlines that we've got to notify voters, can we revisit that after the polling place? I mean, I can find out about updating why this was not on the voter notification card now. And I can update it either from the state side of it, or it might be something that we can do within our system to add municipal to that line and go forward with it. But I just, that's what I'm trying to understand, is where the timeline is trying to get this information to the voters.
Well,
because of our
obviously, I
deadlines.
wouldn't even suggest that something be done that couldn't be done
Correct.
time-wise. I'm not,
Okay.
but I am concerned that that notification is inferior and is going to confuse.
Do any of you live within the town lines of, do you have your voter notification
No.
card with you? Okay. Because I don't remember how it's listed, but I'm gonna look now that I've seen that.
Right.
I'm gonna look to see if I thought it said municipal.
The
Right.
issue came up before, and it said municipal, but it was still confusing, but people didn't read that, a lot of them. But,
Right.
And I vote at the same place.
right.
Right,
So
and
that helps.
granted, most people probably don't have to look at their voter notification card because they've done the same thing again and again, which is why they are gonna go to the wrong place.
Correct.
Yeah. Do we have to have municipal elections on there, since we're not involved with them?
Yes, they have to
do?
know where they go to vote in a municipal election, yes.
In
Even though
any
we don't,
case,
yes.
I would correct.
I
if
want to
you
find
can,
out
and
why.
then-
Mhm.
And then do what we can do to make it a more informative
Yeah,
voter
clearer,
notification
just,
card.
yeah,
Mhm.
clearer.
Yeah, it used to say municipal, but still people missed it, but at least it was on there. But it's not even on there now.
And I have no idea when that would have changed or why it would have changed.
Mhm.
Because honestly, I thought that was driven by the state, but I don't know that.
It could
So
have
I don't
been.
know.
But as soon as you said to me, local election at this spot, so on the card, it could be local elections or whatever, whatever, I don't care. It just needs to be clear. It needs to be simple.
I will check into it.
All right, let's go back. We didn't conclude the May meeting time change, did we?
No, we did not. Okay, I move that we change the May meeting to 9:30 morning start.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to change the May meeting. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 And I will ask Miss Shortle to be here at 9:30 so that they can do the swearing in at that time. Is that what you want to go ahead and do as a group?
Or if another time suits her better, I mean, it doesn't have to be at 9:30, I think, anytime within the next hour or so.
That would be fine with me. I mean,
Yeah, I think,
that's up to her, actually.
Right, and she's already said she's available, so I was just waiting to get your recommendation, and then I will let her know. I just thought doing it first thing, and then that way
Yeah,
you
she's
can go from the
available, but
meeting at
I
that
would think,
point. Yeah, okay.
Okay, let's see. We have the issues of early voting judge salaries. And Jerry came back with,
Correct. In November, I had sent the
things.
information or given you the information of prorating, and then there was the information that you had recommended on what your thoughts were. So whichever one is fine with me. I had based it on a 15-hour, 12-hour day as opposed to a 15-hour day. It's after the county bulletin.
what was that? Was it really, what did you say, a 12-hour, is it really a 12-hour day? 'Cause it
They're asked
started-
to be there from 9 to 9.
They have to come in an hour early?
Yes, they have to get set up. Yeah.
So
And the first
It
day, they
doesn't
usually
stay
go
out from
in.
from the day before?
Oh, no, we have to secure everything.
Everything else?
Oh, definitely. Mhm.
And what time they usually get out of there? What do they have to do to
It's-
close out?
It's usually around 9. I mean, it ends at 8. So you give them an hour that they've got to do paperwork and, what they need to do. So usually 9 to 9 that's what we usually tell the judges is it's a 12-hour day.
So, okay, the early voting is 9 to 9?
The
No, it's
actual,
8 to 10.
it's 10 to 8.
10 days,
10 to 8 on early voting.
right. But
And-
she said an hour earlier, an hour later.
And usually on the first day and the last day, they stay a little bit longer because the first day they have the initial setup of everything, running reports and so forth, and then the last day we have to load everything up and bring it back to the
So
the office.
the majority of the days they work they have to show up at 9 and leave at 8.
Correct. 9 to 9.
9 to 9, okay. And
It doesn't close until 8, so they have to
Yeah,
have time
okay,
to.
yeah,
yeah.
okay. So I just want to get that straight. And then on election day, then they have to arrive at 6?
Well, usually I recommend 5:45, only it gives chief judges time to let us know in case somebody's not there,
Okay, and that's until, what, 10 at night?
depending on how long it takes them.
Okay.
I think you all had recommended the 240, 220, 200, and so that's fine with me if that's what you would want to do.
That one seems reasonable to me, but
Okay, so that,
need
that's,
somebody to make a motion one way or
the
the
cost
other.
runs up to be 45,325, is that, am I reading that
That's
correct?
including election day, yes.
Yeah, election day. Okay, that's, I hate to make all the motions, but I'll move that we do that. Do the 240, 220, 200, 200, $225 as specified in there.
Do I have a motion, do I have a second? We have to do something. If we don't second that one, then we need another motion. Do something different.
Second.
Thank you, Wanda. Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no?
Opposed.
Okay. Motion passes by 3-1 vote. Okay, supplies verification, what's the time frame on that?
The
15
deadline,
days before?
the
our
deadline
vote?
is May 30th. I just figured it would be easier if you wanted to do it when you had the meeting, but if you would rather wait until the 30th to come in and do it that day, that's fine with us.
How
That
long
gives
is it
us a few
likely
more
to
days.
take with, like, going on 2 precincts, is that it?
It's 2 precincts in early voting, so 3 of them. Doesn't take that long. It's usually one of each party that comes and verifies it, but it doesn't say it has to be, so it can be just 2 board members.
So we don't all 5 of us don't have to be there.
I thought it said it had to be one of each party.
I mean, it's always better to have it one of each party, because then that way you're always, usually, that's the way it is done. But it just specifically on each one of the sheets, it only says that it has to be board member signature.
May 16th, is that too early
So let's
at the
see, it
meeting
would
date?
be-
Or should we wait and just to schedule another time?
You can do it the last week in May if you would like to.
Yeah, I said May 16th is too early.
Well, I mean, we'll have it ready. I can't tell you, again, the things that are on here, we will have. If we do not have ballots at that point, we should have them, but you can only check off what you actually know that we have. So at this point, I would say that there's nothing wrong with doing it the 16th. But if you would rather wait until maybe the next week, it's entirely up to you all.
Well, why don't we hold this decision until the 16th? And we'll see, you'll know how much supplies you have and
Oh, well, there'll be,
how long our meeting goes on the 16th, you know.
well, I have to send, so that is what you want to do, because I have to send this over to Janie, that we are going to follow their verification
Right,
process.
yeah.
Okay.
I think we're fine with their,
Okay,
anybody see any
and we will have it done.
problems with their verification forms?
This was the first page that I sent you, just, it shows the verification plan. If you do anything other than what the state board says, then we have to develop a plan, and it works
I don't
to
think
do
we
it
wanna
that
do
way.
that.
No, we don't. Not if we can help it.
Okay. 15 days.
Well, I guess
15
we'll-
days before
We'll
early
have to
voting.
have a motion to adopt the state's verification process. Would make sense to me. Anybody want to adopt a different one?
I don't want to adopt a different one, but I don't want to make any motions.
You don't wanna make
I
any
made enough
motions?
motions already.
Somebody else want to make a motion to adopt the state's form, plan?
I make a motion that we adopt the state's verification plan.
Have a second?
Second.
Second? Okay, is there any discussion? Take a vote on adopting the state verification process. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Okay, motion carries. Let's see.
You gotta hurry up, I'm running out of paper here.
The post-election audit.
Well, we talked about earlier.
Right. Is there anything else to do on that?
It's just that you need to let me know what precincts that
Oh,
will be audited. That's all.
And you were gonna clarify a couple of things for us, one
Yeah,
of which
I'm gonna
was
talk to Nikki about,
the, whether it's board means board members, or does board mean this
yeah.
entity here?
Can the staff pick the precincts, or is it recommended that the board pick the precincts? And can it be picked prior to the 8 o'clock, or can it be picked at canvas? I think that is gonna be a no, only because I think the verification starts the day after the election. And the canvas won't be until 2 days later.
So we would have to meet after 8 o'clock on election
And I
night.
can ask them if they can do it, you know, if you guys can do it. And if we can do it, then I'll reach out to Nikki and I'll let you all know.
Okay.
Yeah, this is time.
Either Nikki or Aaron, I'm not sure which. Aaron would probably be able to answer the question.
And we would rely on you for guiding us through the steps that we have to take.
It's just a matter of pulling them out of the hat. And also, you would be, on election day, you would need to be there for the early voting canvass that afternoon around 2, I think is what it's, around 2 o'clock.
Yeah, but the audit entails what steps? I mean, I can understand what
It's basically verifying that everything was done correctly. There's gonna be a list, there'll be
that's what I'm
a
asking.
workbook, basically.
There's a workbook, okay, that's what I wanted to know.